This is how the famous Lighthouse of Alexandria on the island of Pharos is depicted today. However, in reality, it could have looked completely different. Only descriptions by contemporaries and small ancient coins with a schematic image of the lighthouse have survived to our time. In fact, this is one of the reasons why the grand structure was not even attempted to be restored for centuries. From the surviving evidence, we can see that, first of all, parts of the architectural elements were decorated with sculptures. Tritons stood at the bottom on 4 sides, and a large statue about 8 meters tall stood at the very top. We do not know for sure who it was, but according to various accounts, it could have been, for example, Poseidon, Zeus, or some other deity. Without the skyscraper-like lighthouse, ancient sailors would have had a hard time off the coast of Alexandria. The bay here is shallow and rocky. The landscape is monotonous. No hills, no mountains, only desert plains and lowlands. There were simply no distinctive landmarks. Moreover, the lighthouse served another important purpose. A watchtower was needed to monitor and track enemies from the sea, to warn the townspeople in time and, accordingly, to orient and repel attacks from the sea. It was Alexander the Great who conceived the idea of building a huge tower with signal fires in this location. However, the construction of the lighthouse began only after the death of the great conqueror, at the end of the 3rd century BCE, during the reign of King Ptolemy the Wuonsota. The entire complex took about 12 years to build. A significant portion of Egypt's treasury was spent on it, 800 talents, which is approximately 23 tons of silver. The construction of the Lighthouse of Alexandria, also known as the Pharos Lighthouse, was entrusted to the famous architect Sostratus of Cnidus at that time. But it became known only a few centuries later that it was he who built the giant tower on the island of Pharos. According to legend, Ptolemy the Reared's successor, Ptolemy II Philadelphus, ordered his name to be inscribed on its foundation. Allegedly, it was he who created one of the 7 wonders of the world. Architect Sostratus was a proud but clever man. He did not argue with the ruler, but simply outsmarted him. He inscribed his name on the wall, stating that he, Sostratus of Cnidus, erected this structure in honor of the sea gods for the benefit of all sailors. He plastered over his inscription and wrote the pharaoh's name and praises to the pharaoh on top. But of course, after a few centuries, all the plaster covering the main inscription fell off, and the inscription with the actual creator's name, Sostratus, who built this tower, was revealed. Judging by the surviving descriptions, the Alexandrian signal tower was completely unlike modern lighthouses. It rather resembled a unique high-rise building consisting of 3 tiers. The light of the Lighthouse of Alexandria could be seen for dozens of kilometers, allowing ships to enter the Bay of Alexandria. It was not in vain that it was called one of the 7 wonders of the world. After all, for a long time, it remained the tallest structure on the planet. And it was precisely this that played a cruel trick on it later. Scientists still wonder how ancient builders managed to erect a tower whose height, according to some estimates, reached 180 meters. Moreover, the lighthouse withstood the onslaught of hurricanes and the blows of waves for centuries. Apparently, the load-bearing structure was the walls themselves in the lower tier. That is, it was such a thick foundation that served as the structural support. Well, this is the main version. But most likely it was probably like that because, well, how else could you build such a tall building? But this is not the only secret of the ancient builders. Inside the Lighthouse of Alexandria, a spiral ramp was constructed. Researchers suggest that initially, materials for the construction of the upper tier were hauled up on it, and then fuel for the fire was delivered by carts. Most likely wood was not used in Egypt. It was a very expensive material. Most likely papyrus or oils were used to maintain the fire. The fire of the Lighthouse of Alexandria shone so brightly that it was compared to a star in the dark sky. Scientists believe that, in addition to the fire pit at the top of the tower, the masters equipped a complex optical system. According to various accounts, there were special structures made of concave lenses, such as mirrors possibly made of polished metal which amplified the light from the fire at night and, during the day, possibly allowed reflecting sunlight and directing it toward the sea. The Lighthouse of Alexandria guided sailors into the harbor and helped them avoid dangerous reefs for over 1,000 years. But due to its giant size and location, it fell victim to numerous earthquakes. The huge tower stood at the junction of two tectonic plates, the African and Arabian. The first serious blow was dealt by the underground shocks of the year 365. Then the ancient skyscraper partially collapsed, but it was restored. The earthquake of 956 destroyed the entire middle and upper parts of the lighthouse, and the earthquake of 1303 finally destroyed the lighthouse, and it essentially ceased its functional activity as a structure helping sailors reach the port of Alexandria. But interestingly, not far from Alexandria, in the necropolis of Abu Sir, a structure remarkably similar to the destroyed lighthouse has survived. This is an ancient tomb called the Abu Sir Tower. It is believed that it was built as a reduced copy of the seventh wonder of the world. Scientists who studied this tower determined that it was built during the reign of Ptolemy II Philadelphus, and it was precisely during his reign that the construction of the Lighthouse of Alexandria was completed. Therefore, they linked that, most likely, the people who built this funerary complex used this majestic structure in miniature. This tower is only 20 meters tall, but somehow conveys the main aspects of the Lighthouse of Alexandria. The Abu Sir Tower could become a model for the recreation of the Lighthouse of Alexandria. In 2015, such a project was approved by the Egyptian authorities. A copy of the seventh wonder of the world is planned to be erected near its historical location, on the island of Pharos in the Bay of Alexandria. Additionally, the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities proposes to open an underwater museum on the bottom of the eastern harbor, where visitors will be able to see ancient sunken ruins, including fragments of the Pharos lighthouse.